Welcome to Webinar Wednesday and happy HTM week. Today we are joined by Joe Alley, Manager Service Performance at PartsSource, and Brodie Bowders, Senior Director Marketing Depot Services at PartsSource too. So thank you to today's sponsor, PartsSource. With the mission of ensuring healthcare is always on, PartsSource empowers owners and operators of mission-critical equipment to maximize clinical availability and patient throughput while achieving substantial savings and efficiencies. PartsSource connects more than 5,000 hospitals and 15,000 clinical sites with more than 10,000 suppliers, enabling access to parts, services, and training through a leading technology platform for managing mission-critical healthcare equipment. So for more information, please visit partsource.com. Okay, today's webinar, as usual, is eligible for 1 CE credit from the ACI, and you can attain your CE certificate by completing the post-webinar survey, which will be emailed 1 hour after the completion of today's webinar. You must complete the survey to receive your 1 CE credit, and you'll be able to download the certificate directly from your computer once you've submitted the survey. Now, if you have any questions, you can reach us at webinar@mdpublishing.com. Also, just a quick reminder to please join us for our HTM Mixer Northwest, which is being held at the Hyatt Regency Bellevue Hotel in Seattle, Washington, and that's July the 31st and August the 1st. Now, our mixers are a slightly modified, smaller and less crowded event, but still provide valuable continuing education, networking, and vendor engagement opportunities. So for more information and registration details, please visit htmmixer.com. Also, please save the date for our full MD Expo. We're heading to the Rose and Shingle Creek Hotel in Orlando, Florida from October the 13th to the 15th. So please join us for 3 days of education, networking, and the latest advances in medical technology products and services. For more information and registration details, please visit mdexposhow.com. Let's kick off today's webinar by giving away a Swiss Force Meister multi-tool. So using the questions feature on your dashboard, let me know the answer to the following trivia question. May is National Barbecue and Hamburger Month. So what is the most popular topping? I'll reveal the answer and our winner at the end of the webinar. We'll be wrapping up today's presentation with a live Q&A. So please submit your questions anytime using the questions feature on your dashboard. As I mentioned earlier, our presenters today are Joe Alley and Brodie Bowders. So Brodie, you may begin whenever you're ready.
All right, thank you, Linda. I really appreciate the intro. And just to echo what Linda said, welcome to Webinar Wednesday, and for joining us here to talk about a better way to manage depot repairs. And also to echo what she said, happy HTM week. Before we jump in, I want to take a second to frame what we're going to cover today. So we're going to take a look at how to take what is often a fragmented process and simplify, and how you can simplify that into something that's more streamlined and more manageable for your operations. We'll explore how teams are reducing administrative burden, improving turnaround times, and gaining more predictable control over their repair costs, all without sacrificing quality. And lastly, we'll talk about how shifting the right repairs to depot can help free up your team to focus on higher priority, more mission critical work and moving that forward. As Linda said, my name is Brodie Bowders, and I'm a senior director here at PartsSource. I'm part of the marketing team, and among my areas of responsibility, I'm directly involved in our depot business as we continue to build and expand that. And what services within depot repair we are able to offer to our customers. And I'm happy to be joined today by Joe Alley. Joe, do you want to take a second and introduce yourself?
Sure. Thank you. I'm Joe Alley. I'm the manager of service performance at PartsSource. I've been here about 2.5 years. Most of, if not all of that time has been focused on depot suppliers, and depot performance.
Awesome. Thanks, Joe. All right, so let me start with a situation that I hope feels familiar. And the situation is that a clinician reaches out. They reach out to you, maybe email, maybe text, maybe phone, maybe they come down and they're standing at your doorway, tapping their feet, looking at you a little bit cross-eyed because they need a device back. They want to know when it's going to be returned. and when they are going to be able to put it back into service. And in that situation, you know that the device was sent out, but you may not necessarily know exactly where it is, when it's coming back, or even how much it's going to cost you to get it fixed. So you start digging through emails, texts, maybe you place a call or two, and what should really be a simple answer ends up turning into this really long process. And so today's conversation is really about that moment and how to eliminate it. And when you layer that particular moment across your entire organization, and you factor in more devices, maybe you're managing those devices with fewer people, certainly probably the same, and every repair ends up competing for time. And so what happens is your team is constantly making trade-offs. What's going to get fixed now? What are you going to send out for repair? What are you going to keep and do in-house? And what's going to get delayed? What's going to get piled up in the corner or in a box or on a shelf? Maybe it just piles up on your bench. And none of these decisions are easy. And that creates strain on your ability to be able to focus on things that are more critical for your operation. Recently, I was with 30 customers, and we were talking about how many more devices that they're repairing today versus 3 years ago. And most of the people in the room said it's at least 25% more devices that they're responsible for than they were 3 years ago. And out of those 30, when I asked how many of you have actually gotten dollars to be able to hire new team members in order to be able to handle that increased workload, and I think it was about 3, maybe 4 hands went up in the room that said they were able to. And so this just continues to create strain on your ability to manage everything that you're being asked to in maintaining equipment, keeping equipment up and running as part of your overall asset management strategy. And what we find among our customer group is that there's a part that's really easy to miss in all of this. And that's that most of the costs associated with depot repair actually isn't the repair itself, it's everything around it. It's all the follow-ups, it's the coordination with the vendors, it's the back and forth with the vendors. Maybe it's back and forth with team members, maybe it's back and forth with the clinical team. You know, our benchmark data when working with customers and looking at just their total operation around devices that are, I'll call it depot eligible for depot repair, meaning they could be sent out, but there's a mix of those devices that they're doing in-house and a mix that they're sending out. And the time that it takes them on average for every 100 beds within their system can be 800 to 1,000 hours per 100 beds. And that ends up compounding, right? As you know, systems, there's a lot of systems out there that are a lot larger than that, 2,500 beds, 3,700 beds. Regardless of their size, all of those small moments add up across all those devices, all those vendors, and every day. And what happens over time is, as that friction increases, you're not just managing the repairs, you start chasing them. You're chasing the updates, you're chasing the vendors, you're chasing clarity on where things are and when they're going to be returned and ready for service. So imagine that same scenario, but different. Instead of chasing, you can see exactly where everything is. You know who's working on it. You know what it's going to cost you. And when someone asks for an update, you have it instantly. That's the shift we're talking about today. And what's interesting is it doesn't take a complicated solution to be able to get there. It's actually quite simple. You send something out, you see it move through the workflow, and over time, you start learning from what's happening. And so instead of reacting to repairs one at a time, you're turning repairs into a predictable part of your operation and asset management strategy. And what I want to do next is share with you a demonstration of what that platform looks like. So for some of you, if you're using PartsSource.com today to order parts or to order on-site services, you might see some things that are familiar to you here. For those of you, this is for whom this is new. I hope there's a spark here for you to give the platform a try following this webinar. I'm already logged into the system here, and before I show you a specific example, I want to show you just what would come up if you type in the word repair, to give you a sense of the modalities for which we have vendors in our network with the ability to repair those devices, catalog numbers associated with those repairs, and in the event that we don't have it in our repair catalog, there is a process, and this will be one of the examples that I go through for you to be able to submit a repair request, and then our vendor operations teams find somebody to be able to do that repair for you. And so you can see there's quite a few modalities that are available in the catalog. And if we click into, let's say, like infusion and syringe pumps, you'll see that we get the full list of what's available. There's a mix here of preventative maintenance, repair services. There's other categories. If we jump into anesthesia, calibration services are also available within the catalog. But the example I want to show you is how to submit for a repair for a Baxter Sigma pump. There we go. All right, so you can see that's the first thing here in the search results that are returned back. This is the one that I, in fact, want. So I'm going to click on that, and it gives me information associated with that repair. It's an aftermarket flat rate repair, and the cost for that flat rate repair is $265. Initiating a repair is as simple as clicking on the button here. It says initiate repair. There is information that is required to initiate it, and so we'll go ahead and fill that out. One of the pieces of information is the serial number, and in this instance, we'll say it's a broken screen. I have an asset ID and a work order associated with it, and a cost center. And if there's anything that I leave out, when I go to click the save button, it's going to tell me. But in this instance, I've completed all of the required information to be sent to the vendor that will do the repair. The item has been added to my cart. If there's other devices that I wanted to include in my cart and check out, I can continue to shop, or I can view my cart and check out specifically for the repair of this Baxter Sigma pump. I'm going to go ahead and start the checkout process. And so I'm proceeding with that, and I get a summary of the device that's to be repaired, my facility, reference number, and the device information that I inputted 2 screens ago. Over here on the right, in the right nav bar, if I want to print the quote out, perhaps maybe it's required of me to document that, I can do that. I can print it, or I can save it as a PDF. And then once I've done that, if that's required of me, I can proceed to check out. And just like you would check out on some e-commerce sites, for personal purchases, this process is very similar to that. I have my cart summary, which carries forward from the previous screen, and I can expand to view that if I have a reason to. I can confirm my address. In this case, I'm already set up on the platform, and so it knows our default address is shipping. And so I'll confirm that. And in the event that I have a preferred shipping method, if that's a method that's available with the vendor, then that would surface here, and I could pick between that and other options. In this instance, FedEx is the only available shipping service is associated with the vendor that this repair is going to go to. but I do have the option of being able to pick how it gets shipped out. Given that I likely have more of these devices in a closet somewhere, this is not an urgent request, so I'm going to go with the least expensive option and just stick with the FedEx ground. And then for payment, there are two ways to process payment. One, it could be associated with a PO, or I can also place a credit card purchase, and I just would need to add the credit card information to be able to do that. In this case, I've got a PO against which this purchase will be made. And then over here on the right, within the right-hand side nav bar, you'll see I'm going to kind of start here in the middle. I can print the quote out if I forgot to do that on the next step and realized that I needed to do it. I can still do that here. And then at the bottom, you can see what the shipping label will look like when the device is returned to me. Everything looks good at this point, so I'll go ahead and place the purchase. Okay, so my order's been successfully placed. If I want, I still have some work here to do. I can select to receive text updates on this particular order if I want to. Now my number's already in the system, so it doesn't need to verify me. If this is your first time using the system, it'll send you a code. It'll text you a code that you would input there to verify that it's you. If I need a copy of the receipt, I can do that here. And if there's any other documents associated with returns and labels, I can print those from here as well. And what this is going to do by printing that is it's going to download a packing slip and also the shipping label to my whatever folder I have on my desktop where downloads are saved to. And then from there, I can print that, put the packing slip in with the device, and then put the shipping label on the outside of the box. After initiating that, I drop into my depot dashboard, which will show me all of the repairs that I've submitted. And the one that I just recently submitted is going to be at the top. So this is in order of most recent to oldest. It also shows me everything else that is in process within the workflow. So this view shows me what I've initiated. You can see the subsequent views shows you what's been shipped and is on its way out, what's been received and is being evaluated, quoted, and so on and so forth. If I want to backtrack and look at a particular item that I've submitted for depot repair, I can do that. And just simply by clicking on the row, and it'll pop up what the order summary is associated with that device. If I've opted to not use the system-generated shipping, packing slip and shipping label, and instead do my own shipping, there is the ability to enter the tracking number here so that gets all pulled into the record associated with the repair. As I mentioned, there's a way to also submit a repair for something that's not in the depot repair catalog. And the way you access that option is through the service center. And in the service center, you'll see in the left-hand nav the option of requesting a depot quote. And so you would just click on that, and from that point on, it's a similar process to what we just saw, where you do need to put in information such as the OEM. We'll just do the Baxter Sigma Spectrum pump. I don't know the model number off the top of my head, but I know it's a Spectrum Sigma pump. Let's assume that. I have an asset ID and a work order. Cost center. And serial number. And the repair reason, do the same thing, broken screen. There is the option if I need a loaner, I can click that, and that will be part of the quote that I receive back from the vendor in our network in this instance because of this particular device. And having access to a fleet of devices in storage. I'm not going to opt into adding a loaner. If I have pictures, I can upload those at this point, and those will be sent along with the quote request to the vendor. But it's pretty self-explanatory. When they see it, they'll know. They'll see the correct screen and know that that's what needs to be repaired. There isn't anything unique in that situation. Again, because I'm set up in the system already, the default shipping is going to be the shipping profile that's set up, and then billing, because this would be purchased under a PO, will be the billing address. I'm in here masquerading as Pete Zilko, and this just confirms that I'm the main contact, my phone number and email address. If I need to change that, I can. And then before submitting the request for the repair quote, I do get the opportunity to be able to review the information and confirm that it's all correct. And then I'll submit the requote. I can continue shopping, or I can review my repair quotes, and it takes me back to that screen that we saw earlier, the depot dashboard, that shows everything in whatever phase of the workflow it's in. And you can see that this first, the one here at the top is where I said it starts with the most recent to the oldest, is that request for quote that we just submitted, and then immediately below it is the repair, the flat rate repair that we processed previously. And you can click into that to see the order details associated with it if you so desire. Now there are two features that I wanted to show you guys that if you're a pro customer today, you have access to. And the first one is the command center. And the way to think about the command center is this is like your operational dashboard for your system, and you can filter down to individual hospitals as well as requesters. The filters are here at the top that enable you to do that. I can view what the most significant events or things that are happening today for me, May 20th. I can also look ahead to what tomorrow might mean in terms of the events that are happening. And I can see I've got 30 parts events scheduled for tomorrow. I've got one on site. I've got 2 depot repairs and 2 loaners, and activity around those loaners that I need to be ready to address tomorrow. This middle section here, this identifies specific key actions that are required and shows you in terms of dollar value how many exchanges are past due and need to be set back, how many are due in the next 2 days. Gives you information in dollars also for returns, and then anything requiring an approval. And I'm going to jump into this and we'll see what's in here. First, it's going to show me or take me to the bottom of this page, and it'll show me this data table here, which represents the two approvals that require some attention. And I can find out more information about those by clicking on them. Now, in this instance, these are actually parts approvals, that's not the depot repair approval, or sorry, repair request that we processed a few minutes ago, because that just hasn't cycled through. But I want to show you, in the event that you're requesting a quote for a repair, how this will look for a depot repair. It'll look just like this, where it'll summarize the repair quote request that was made. And then I have the option to accepting that by clicking on purchase, or I could reject it, or I could see other buying options. And if I click on other buying options, it'll show me that what this is defaulted to is the OEM aftermarket exchange. The other option would be I could do new aftermarket outright, but it'll cost me more. In this instance, I'm going to stay with the Emerald X-ray tube aftermarket exchange. And so I would just simply click purchase, and then I will proceed through the checkout process like I shared with you earlier to complete it. And then I still would have to or at this point, it would be, the device would be with the manufacturer. So I wouldn't, the difference being I wouldn't have to send the device out because I would have already have done that as part of initiating a request for quote. Okay. Back to Command Center. So like this bottom third within the Command Center gives you a blowout of all the operational activity that's occurring. If I want to drill down into Depot, you'll see the table, the data table at the bottom refreshes with all of the Depot repairs here. If I wanted to, I can export this to Excel. I just hover over this little gear icon and it'll give me the option to do that. And so that would be if I want to do additional slicing and dicing of the information, maybe for some reporting, or maybe team conversation on a stand-up, or having a conversation with somebody just about how they're managing their depot repairs and wanting to look at both what they've got on their bench and what's been sent out, so that we can identify what we need to prioritize and make sure that we get back into service. The second thing, second feature that's available to our pro customers is visual analytics. And this is where the data associated with all the repairs flowing through the platform become insights. And so depending upon what services, what solutions you're accessing through PartsSource, you'll have a different set of tiles and ability to be able to drill down. If Depot is part of that, you can drill down into Depot Visual Analytics, where I can look by facility, modality, OEM, or even requester, and time box that. Maybe I want to look at activity over the last 6 months, and I can set it with these date options to give that to me. And what this is showing you is what the average turnaround time is for right now. This is set to all of my depot repairs. So on average, it's taking just under 5 days versus a global turnaround of 9.4. And this bottom visualization, this little line graph, shows you the variation. The lighter blue line is the variation of my depot repairs over time around that global benchmark. I can also see how many depot orders I've submitted in that time period and what my spend has been associated with those depot orders. This middle section shows you by OEM the split of devices that you've sent in through partsource.com for depot repairs, and then how those devices break down by modality. And then the second set of graphs are quality metrics associated with Depot, returns by category, and then returns by modality. And these are set to be dynamic. So if I wanted to better understand and drill into all of my Baxter devices that I'm sending out for Depot repair, I can click on orders by OEM to focus in on Baxter, and you can see on the right how the modalities changed. So most of what I'm sending out is infusion pumps, followed by laboratory equipment. And down here at the bottom is another data table. This is the data that's actually behind all the visualization that's on in visual analytics. This too will also change based upon what I select in terms of time, any of the filters at the top of, like for example, if I'm filtering by requester, this data table at the bottom will also filter it. They're synced up to filter together. And similar to the data table that's on the command center, I can also export this for additional analysis and additional uses. So that's how the process works with partsource.com. The next thing we wanted to turn our attention to is, actually I want to turn it over to Joe. Joe's going to talk about our vendor strategy. He's going to also talk about our operations and things that we've done to improve our operations over time, as well as how our catalog's expanded. So Joe, if you just give me a sec here and I'll get our presentation back up.
Awesome. So thank you. And just want to, as Brody was saying, walk you through our approach to depot repair, specifically how we think about our supplier partnerships and why the way we work together and partner with our suppliers matters so much. So we've got 9 boxes on the screen here. Our depot repair partnership model is built on these principles, and quality is at the center. So literally and figuratively at the center of our approach with suppliers. We want to have a high quality repair. We don't have to have a warranty claim or something like that. We want our supplier partners to be ISO 13485 certified, and that's at the center. But things that you also see here, like flat rate repair pricing, no price changes, a speedy turnaround time, these are also the focus. So we want everything. We want speed, quality, cost, partnership, communication, to utilize the supplier portal. We want the total package. And to be able to do that, we look for and we partner with suppliers who can offer all of those things, not just the lowest cost on a repair, but suppliers that really want to offer the best option, the highest repairability on a device and a repair. So the results of getting this right have been real. I want to walk you through that on the next few slides. So next slide. Yep. Thanks, Brody. So really the approach we took, again, is not just to send the repair to the lowest cost vendor or something like that. We've really invested in dedicated resources for vendor performance, order coordination, to enhance the overall depot experience. So a big part of that is we've gone and met our depot repair suppliers firsthand at their facilities to understand what their capabilities are and best partner with them, to see their repair line, to see their technicians doing a repair, to understand how they're doing it, what are their evaluation capabilities, what kinds of things can they do and can't they do, to understand those things, to best match the repairs that are coming from our customers and going out to our suppliers. So we strategically match the right suppliers based on their capabilities and their performance. So it's an ongoing and dynamic event where we're always looking at repairability, we're always looking at the speed, the quality, and the cost to ensure the best outcome. So as a result of doing this, repair times and costs have decreased, while repairability and flat rate repair options have increased. So I'll show you this on the next slide. So these are real graphics here we're super proud of. Vendor turnaround time for depot repair has decreased by almost 60%. So at the beginning of 2024, we were 18 days, around 18 days. So from the time a vendor got a repair to the time they did that repair and sent it back out. And now we're under 8 days. So a pretty dramatic decrease there. This has been in large part due to our approach that we're going to have that flat rate price. And once we have that flat rate price on a repair, we're not going to change it. So we're not going to have limitations and exclusions and gotchas like, oh, hey, you need a case, we need to, no, we're not changing the price. Again, this is me going out to the vendor and understanding what they can do, and then telling them they're not going to change the price and explaining the advantage of that to everyone. It's a dissatisfier for the customer. They hate it. PartsSource hates it because we have to do more work and have a very difficult conversation with the customer. And then ultimately for the supplier, it makes no sense either. They've got a device on their repair shelf that they're sitting there waiting to get an additional approval for, they might never receive. So we just stopped doing it. We've decreased the price changes by almost 60% too. And then the really cool thing is we've dramatically increased the number of repairs that we can do. So we're doing them faster. We're doing them more effectively. We're not changing the price, and we can do more devices. So we're adding to our catalog every day. We've gone from 900 repairs in 2024 that have flat rate pricing to over 1,500, 1,600 repairs. So a pretty dramatic increase there, almost double. So next slide. I want to just briefly touch on the modalities and models and devices that we predominantly see and give you some idea of what we can repair. So pretty much, I like to say anything you can fit in a box and send in for repair, we can repair. You know, don't get any ideas with the big boxes or something like that. Maybe that's better suited for on-site service. But anything that you can set in a box, pretty much any medical device. Since I've been doing this, I love to go into a hospital and see the different devices in any given room. You'll have 5 or 10 devices there that are on this list and can be sent in for depot. But we use the example of the Sigma infusion pump. That's probably our top running device that we see most of, but we also see things like MX40s for patient monitoring, O2 blenders for repair and PM, transducers. You've got under general biomed here, defibrillators, ESUs, things like that. The there are capabilities that we very recently invested a lot of work into building out. So under imaging, ultrasound probes, systems, MRI coils, we've gone and we visited the specific vendors that do those repairs and developed a strategy based on make and model, where we actually have a matrix for every make and model of a probe. We have a vendor solution. Whether a loaner is required or not, that option may change, and we know who can provide the best experience in terms of repair for our customers. So in the same way, endoscopes. So we've built out our repair catalog here quite a bit, adding many makes and models of flexible and rigid endoscopes to have flat rate pricing. So, and again, you know, if you don't see something here, it doesn't mean we can't repair it. We may have it in the catalog, so you have that option to search for it, but if you can't find it or you don't want to do that, you can always request a depot quote.
Joe, maybe on like with respect to requesting a depot quote, maybe elaborate a little bit on like what happens when we receive that. Like how do we go into action?
Yeah, so that'll go to our depot operations team. They have specific dedicated resources to source that request. A lot of times we get requests for quote on things we already have in the catalog, whether that's somebody just couldn't find that item in the catalog or you know, just wanted to go the request a quote avenue. They're then matching that quote to the vendor that can do that repair. So a lot of times it looks like somebody requests a quote on an endoscope. And although we have the makes and the models in the catalog, they're matching that up with the vendor who can do that repair. In the instance that we don't have something in the catalog, they're able to look at historically what are some of the like devices. Maybe we've done some repairs on that exact make and model, or maybe we've done some repairs on a very similar make and model, and then going to that vendor to source that request. So sometimes it looks like we're going to the OEM because maybe the OEM's the only option that can do that service or repair. That happens too. So then on the back end, another thing that we're doing is we're looking at what are kind of the quotes that we get, what are the manual sourcing requests that we have to do. And if we're doing a few of them, then it probably makes sense to get that item in, and we do that. So whether that's putting a quoted option in the catalog, or often it's me going to that vendor and saying, hey, you're repairing a lot of this. I see you're always kind of charging me that same price. Let's talk about getting a flat rate price in the catalog and what that looks like and how that's going to play out.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
So what most organizations don't realize is how much effort is actually going on to manage repairs within their organization until it's removed, and all of a sudden now there's this time that's freed up to be able to focus on more important things within their operation. And what used to be multiple touch points, you know, becomes one through the portal. What used to take hours can become minutes, maybe even seconds, and what used to feel unpredictable becomes routine. It becomes a part of their operations, their standard workflow, and their asset uptime management strategy. And I'll give you a real world example here of how this has worked out for one particular customer, Cincinnati Children's in this case. And this was a fairly sizable team that didn't change everything all at once. They started small. They started small with just a subset of repairs to prove to themselves that it could work, demonstrate the value, and then from there they scaled and expanded into other modalities and other devices within those modalities. And what they found in their particular situation was that it wasn't just faster, it freed up their team to be able to focus on the work that actually required their expertise. And that's where a solution like the PartsSource platform becomes stops being really about efficiency and starts being more about capacity, more about the capacity of the team. And the part that usually raises most eyebrows is that to get started, it doesn't really require like a big change and to keep it going. It doesn't require necessarily a lot of effort. There's no overhaul. It's designed to fit within your existing workflow. As I mentioned at the beginning, if you use partsource.com, hopefully what you saw in the demo today feels familiar if you're on there ordering parts or other solutions that we offer through the platform. So there's no new system to learn. And if you would be new to the PartsSource platform, we try to make it as easy as possible for you to be able to utilize it and have a customer success team that can back you up as you implement this as part of your standard workflow. So our goal is for this to work really within what you're already doing today. So the barrier of trying it is basically gone. And that's why most teams don't, just launch this. They try it. They pick one repair. Maybe they look at their last 10 repairs and do a postmortem to identify what worked, what didn't work. Pick a few of those devices out of those 10 to try first, and maybe it's just one device, and then they look for that opportunity to feel different, or use that opportunity to see what feels different to them, and usually that's all it takes to get them started. And so if we go back to where we started, back to that clinician who's asking about where their device is, it's different. This time you don't need to check emails. You're not having to make phone calls, send texts, go back and forth with a vendor. You already know where the repair is, and it's in the workflow. You know what's happening with it, and you have visibility to when it's coming back. And so that moment, that interaction that used to create friction for you, now it's just handled. It's handled through the platform. And when enough of those moments change, your entire operation can begin to feel really different than the way it had been before. So we'd like to continue the conversation. We have some time for Q&A. And to help that conversation, we've teed up a couple of questions here for you. If you want to respond to any of these that we've identified, please feel free. If there's other things that are more top of mind to you, a comment or a question, we'd love to hear it. So Linda, if we want to open up the lines, we can go ahead and do that.
Okay, perfect. I've got a couple of questions that have popped up. The first one is, which device manufacturers or models do you think could benefit most from a flat rate depot repair approach at your organization?
Joe, you want to take that one?
Sure. I mean, I guess the question is, what devices would benefit most from a depot approach?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I would say
that's how I understood the question.
Yeah, I would say anything on the list that we showed, but the typical devices that we see most often, and I feel do the best from the flat rate approach are patient monitors, infusion pumps, kind of the general biomedical devices that for, we showed this Sigma is kind of our, our banner repair, if you will. That price, that pro price on that repair is $265, and we'll be able to repair any damage for that price. So, I mean, that's what I would say. Generally, those infusion pumps, patient monitors, devices like that benefit from a flat rate approach. The flip side is other devices that are a bit more complex, like probes and scopes. It's harder to offer one flat rate price on a device like that because there's such a range of variability in what could be wrong with the device. So in those cases, we don't take a flat rate approach. For a probe, we want to evaluate it first and then give you a price to repair based on what was actually needed to be done.
Would it be fair, Joe, to say, like, if we were to put, like, kind of wrap a general category around those that are conducive to flat rate depot repair, it'd be high volume, low risk for PartsSource, low risk also for the customer.
Right.
I've actually got a question that's come in for flat rate repairs. It's for flat rate repairs, does the PartsSource webpage have a link for all make model of devices that PartsSource can provide flat rate repairs? Hope that makes sense.
Yeah, I think so. If I understand the question, it's is there a link, like, to a file or a page that would literally list out all of the flat rate repairs that are available?
Yeah.
Just kind of in a list format, maybe not as many details as like what we saw in the demo, that just a list, if I understand the question correctly.
Yeah.
Joe, I think you were gonna, I think I might have jumped
I don't know that there's
Sorry about that.
There's not a list. Certainly I could get a list. I'd be happy to share our catalog, but it'd be like what you showed, Brody, where you typed in repair and then you saw the different categories, and then within those categories you had the list sort of the search results, and you can manipulate that to say, hey, for infusion pump, show me Baxter, or the other way around, show me Baxter within repair, and see what kinds of devices we're offering flat rate repairs on.
Yeah, and the thing I think I would add to what Joe said is like that anyone can do that today. Like, you can set up an account with PartsSource.com and start shopping for depot repairs and process it and submit for purchase. You don't have to be a pro customer. You don't have to have a contract to be able to do that. When we do, though, engage with customers who are interested in some form of contract, we do have a process that we'll go through. We have an economic calculator that kind of gets things started, looking at like benchmark data. Like, this is where we see hospitals or systems of your size in terms of the number of devices, what the repair opportunities would be, what the potential savings would be in utilizing PartsSource as part of your asset management strategy. And then part two of that is actually working with you to get your spend data on Depot, as well as your asset list, because then we can fine tune what that looks like and make specific recommendations based upon your specific fleet as to where it makes sense. And I said earlier, some customers will pick a modality, or they'll look at like their last 10 repairs and pick the one that's been most troublesome to them, and they'll start there. Others have told us, like a 10 hospital system says, I want to do everything for these 2 systems. And so we can actually build a bigger model around how Depot can facilitate that asset management strategy and free up time for your teams in those instances. So if that's something that you would be interested in pursuing, that would just mean a conversation with your account manager to initiate that.
Perfect. Another question here is, what's currently the biggest challenge in managing outsourced depot repairs? Turnaround time, pricing consistency, visibility, or perhaps vendor coordination?
Joe, I'll start from from a customer point of view, like what we hear from customers, and then maybe if you want to offer more of an operational view on that.
Sure.
What I have heard from customers in the last, I don't know, call it 6 months, in various venues like this or going to trade shows, is it's the communication loops and visibility are the most painful. They'll initially say the vendor management or qualifying a vendor, certifying their quality of repairs. But once that's done, managing that becomes easier. But what's persistent is the visibility and the communication loops that occur and having to go back and forth. Sometimes it might even just be answering questions, but mostly it's trying to track down where a device is in its repair workflow. And then since turnaround time, was brought up, when I'm talking to customers about that particular pain point, yes, they don't want to see turn times, extended. If we're going to put a commitment in place around what they should expect on turn time, we need to hit it. Things do happen, and they acknowledge that. It's when it's not communicated. So that kind of ties back into those communication loops and lack of visibility. So Joe, do you want to comment on maybe on the vendor side?
Yeah, I mean, I think that on the vendor side, it's similar, right? I think communication is probably the biggest challenge for established supplier partners. We obviously have established communication channels and interact with them often, but you've also got devices where we don't see too often, where we're having to look for, we're talking about like you get a request for a quote. So you're sourcing to somebody who might not have done 100 repairs with you recently. So getting those same kinds of updates and communication can be challenging in those situations.
Mm-hmm.
Perfect. We've got time for one more question here. Are there specific device categories you'd prefer to outsource more often if pricing and turnaround time were more predictable?
So meaning that today maybe there's more variability in those two metrics. If I'm understanding the question. Could you repeat the question, Linda?
Yeah, sure. Are there specific device categories you'd prefer to outsource more often if pricing and turnaround time were more predictable?
So, okay, so if my interpretation of the question is correct, I'm hearing it as if today it's not predictable, like what are the categories today that are least predictable in terms of turnaround time, and which of what are those categories that you would then want to outsource if you had an option where it was more predictable?
Yeah.
Joe, I mean, do you have any insight on that based upon the turnaround time improvements that we've made and what we've seen there?
Yeah, I mean, the devices that are going to have the strongest speed are going to be the devices that we see the most of. So again, the infusion pumps, the patient monitors, the devices like that we see a lot of, and we have a flat rate price. So we just go when we get the repair. We don't need to wait for an approval or something like that. Our technician evaluates what needs to be done and does it. So those would have the strongest turnaround times.
Yeah, and I would add is, I mentioned the spend assessment that we perform in the case of moving towards with a customer a contracted commitment. as part of that diligence, part of that discovery, we would, to the best that a customer has available data, even if it's anecdotal, we'll work with it to understand where they're having trouble today, and then work backwards to with Joe and his team to identify where we have vendors within our network that are strong in those areas, and we believe based upon their historical performance could improve that. So it's a deliberate process in how we connect what customers are wanting to process through PartsSource Depot to the vendor network, and making sure that those are always moving in sync with one another. I kind of think of it as a string. They're tied together as a string. One can't get too far out in front of the other. They both have to move together. And as part of that process, there's continual reviews with our vendors. Joe mentioned visiting several vendors as we've onboarded them, or as we've tried to work with them on improving, their turnaround times, their operations, their communication, even. That's an ongoing process to continually improve that.
Perfect. Well, thank you both so much for a great presentation. Now, if you'd like more information about today's presentation and sponsor, please visit partsource.com. Now, as promised, the answer to today's trivia question, of course, is cheese. So congratulations to our winner, Michael Lucas.
Congratulations.
Yeah. A quick reminder, you can obtain your CE certificate by completing the post-webinar survey, which will be emailed 1 hour after the completion of today's webinar. You must complete the survey to receive your 1 CE credit from the ACI, and you'll be able to download the certificate directly from your computer once you submitted the survey. If you have any questions, you can reach us at webinar@mdpublishing.com. Now, if you've missed any of our past webinars, including any by PartsSource, please visit webinarwednesday.live to view our whole webinar archive. We'll be back soon with another webinar. So again, visit webinarwednesday.live for more details and complimentary registration. So thank you all once again for your time today, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your day and Memorial Day weekend.
Thank you, everybody. Thanks, Linda.
Thank you.
Appreciate you facilitating this for us.
Thank you.
Great. Bye, all.